Hello, this is the November 1st, 2010 issue of United Nations Week News and Views. The purpose of the program is to put before you some information about recent events at the UN that you'll probably not come across any other place. My name is John Kerry. The views expressed here are mine alone unless I indicate some other source. What I want to deal with today is freedom of speech and freedom from insults. Here's a quotation from Jeffrey Wheatcroft in the November 11th issue of the New York Review of Books. Wheatcroft is the author of books including one called The Controversy of Zion, which won the National Jewish Book Award in 1996. Says Wheatcroft, quote, "Europeans are bewildered by the Muslim-hating demagogues ranting across America." I repeat, Europeans are bewildered by the Muslim-hating demagogues ranting across America, unquote. Well, this calls to mind the case of journalist Juan Williams. A New York Times editorial on October 30th pronounced that Williams had, quote, "made foolish and hurtful remarks about Muslims on the Fox News channel by cavalierly declaring on Fox that he's no bigot, but when he boards a plane, quote, if I see people who are in Muslim garb and I think you know they are identifying them first and foremost as Muslims, I get worried, I get nervous," unquote, from Juan Williams as quoted in the New York Times editorial of October 30th. Well, for contrast and background, let's look at a recent case dealt with by the UN-related Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. According to the report of this committee, which was created by the International Covenant on the subject, a member of the Danish parliament named Søren Espersen, E-S-P-E-R-S-E-N, referring to what is called female genital mutilation, or FMG for short, asked publicly, quote, "Why should we then ask the Somalis about what they think about it when the majority of Somalis do it as something quite natural?" I'll read that quote again from the member of the Danish parliament. "Why should we then ask the Somalis about what they think about it, what they think about female genital mutilation, when the majority of Somalis do it as something quite natural?" Well, as to those remarks, the committee concluded, the Committee on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination concluded, quote, "The issue before the committee is whether the state party, that's Denmark, fulfilled its positive obligation to take effective action against reported incidents of racial discrimination, having regard to the extent to which it investigated the petitioner's complaint under Section 266B of the Criminal Code." That's the Danish Criminal Code. Continuing the quote, "This provision criminalizes public statements by which a group of people are threatened, insulted, or degraded on account of their race, color, national or ethnic origin, religion, or sexual inclination." So we have this Danish criminal law criminalizing public statements by which a group of people are threatened, insulted, or degraded on account of their race, color, national or ethnic origin, religion, or sexual inclination. And of course the target of those remarks were Somalis, Somali people living in Denmark. Continuing the quote from the committee report, "While strongly condemning the practice of female genital mutilation as a serious violation of fundamental human rights, the committee considers that Mr. Espersen's offensive statements can be understood to generalize negatively about an entire group of people based solely on their ethnic or national origin and without regard to their particular views, opinions, or actions regarding the subject of female genital mutilation. Continuing the quote from the committee report, in the light of the state parties' failure to carry out an effective investigation to determine whether or not an act of racial discrimination had taken place, the committee concludes that Articles 2, Paragraph 1D and 4 of the Convention have been violated. The lack of an effective investigation into the petitioner's complaint under Section 266B of the Criminal Code also violated his right under Article 6 of the Convention, that should be her right, because the complainant is a woman, to effective protection and remedies against the reported act of racial discrimination. Continuing the quote, the committee is of the view that the facts before it disclose violations of Article 2, Paragraph 1D, Article 4, and Article 6 of the Convention. The committee recommends that the state party should grant the petitioner adequate compensation for the moral injury caused by the above-mentioned violations of the Convention. So the violations that the committee finds are not just the insult to the Somalis as a group, but also the inadequate actions taken by the Danish government. Article 5 also is pertinent because in it, quote, states parties undertake to prohibit and eliminate racial discrimination in all its forms and to guarantee the right of everyone without distinction as to race, color, or national or ethnic origin to equality before the law, notably in the enjoyment of the following rights: the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, the right to freedom of opinion and expression. But what if freedoms of religion and speech conflict? The U.S. position under the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination is affected by executive branch reservations made at signing and by Senate reservations to which its advice and consent were subject. For example, this was stipulated by the U.S. upon signature of this treaty. Quote, the Constitution of the United States contains provisions for the protection of individual rights, such as the right of free speech, and nothing in the Convention shall be deemed to require or to authorize legislation or other action by the United States of America incompatible with the provisions of the Constitution of the United States of America, unquote. That completes the reservation made by the executive branch of government upon the signing of this convention. Thus, we cannot determine whether the problems the Danish parliamentarian caused himself would be encountered in the U.S. without researching judicial decisions interpreting the pertinent language of our Constitution. And that is not for today, but for another day. For now, this is the end of today's issue of United Nations Week News and Views. We'll be back with the next issue. Meantime, do send along your comments on these or other UN-related issues to www.unweek.blogspot.com. Goodbye for now, and thank you very much for watching.